What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined as always by Connor Rogers. It is the first official offseason podcast. And I got to tell you, the first 2 days of the offseason have been about 30 times more interesting than the last 7 or 8 weeks for the Jets regular season. The Jets have requested to interview every human being with a pulse in North America for their head coach and GM role. We're going to go through all of them, leading off with Connor's drunk conspiracy take from October. Rex Ryan interviewed to be the New York Jets head coach today in 2025. CR, we were going to record at like 7. You wanted to record 2 hours early. You were so excited to get going on this. How you doing? How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Like you said, the adrenaline gets going during a coaching search. You and I have been through this many times now. And this one, definitely, they're all unique because there's always who's attached to them, what kind of consulting firm or what kind of leadership. There's always what are they looking for? What does the request list look like? And this one is unique in its way where I'm not even kidding. I've had people text me in the league or used to be in the league, all kinds of different people, and they're like, what is going on with this Jets list? And I'm like,
it's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. As we sit here right now, there are 13 head coach names that we have seen, whether requested, whether, interviewed, Rex, Ron Rivera, all kind. And think of the fact that if you think about reality, I'm sure they wanted to talk to Ben Johnson. They just figured out early, which was smart, that wasn't going to happen anyway. So why put in a public request? But the way I answer it is, in all honesty, jokes aside, and they are funny, the way I thought of it is, one, we knew they were going to do their due diligence and everyone, blah, blah, blah. But two, you have to remember, when Mike Tannenbaum started the 33rd team, I always felt the mission statement of the 33rd team when it was launched was kind of a hub for guys that are out of the league, in between jobs, football people, to stay connected to the game and the league throughout that time. And I'm not saying these are all favor interviews for Tannenbaum. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you're getting this long list because you hired the 33rd team. And part of their mission is a little bit of second chances for some guys. And Ron Rivera's had a couple, and Rex Ryan's had a couple. But even some of the GM candidates, when you think of Ryan Grigson, John Robinson, Louis Riddick and Jim Nagy are different because they were never GMs, but they did work in scouting in the NFL a while ago. So the overall point is, I'm not shocked by the sheer volume of this because the people you hired, this is their overall strategy and goal of their company. If you wanted somebody that was like, hey, I got the 4 best candidates for this job, just trust us, you would have went out and hired that person. But instead, you hired people that are going to take a volume approach because that is kind of the goal of their company. And now you have a long search ahead of you. And I'm not saying one way's right or one way's wrong. I'm just saying this isn't surprising in any way when you understand what Tannenbaum and Spielman are trying to build.
Yeah, it's a good point about who they commissioned to do this work. It's almost like if you were working with us and we're like, recommend all your favorite podcasters. And we'd have a million podcasters because we're podcasters and you want to get people out there. Now,
but over a beer, I'd also tell you like the 5 people that I think are really, really good right now and the 5 people that I don't. So
yeah, who are we doing a favor for and who are we serious about putting our name on as a candidate? And there's something to do being like, look, we've screwed everything up. So we're going to look at everything. We don't think we know better. We want to talk to as many people as possible. There is a tipping point with that where how many conversations can you practically have that are actually good, productive conversations?
I agree.
You're just like going through the motions here. And like, what are you really getting out of all of them? Now, these are all requests to interview. Some are going to be remote because these guys are in the playoffs. Some are going to be people flying down to Florida to sit in the room with Woody and Chris and Jaime and Tannenbaum and Spielman. I think those are going to be the main 5 in the room, is the impression we've got. I think once you get past like 7 or 8, I really wonder how many of these people, are we doing them a favor to get their name out there? But it's hard to say with the Jets because I don't ever want to write off a left field candidate being hired. I see like a name like Brian Greasy, and I'm like, man, I haven't thought about Brian Greasy in like
Right.
25 years. I didn't even know he'd be in the mix. And are they doing him a favor to get him in the ringer, like the ring here? He's like a guy who's doing interviews, or is he like a serious candidate? And then you see them like they're interviewing like Rizzi, who's like the Saints interim coach. And are they doing that because maybe he's a coordinator for them next year with one of the head coaches they like? There could be some ulterior motives with some of this stuff. We'll get into more of the specifics around people we think are hopefully the more serious candidates. We do have to start with Rex. This has went from like a bit of a joke to very quickly something that happened. Now, the interview happened already. I am 100% sure as we're recording this and into tomorrow, we will get a lot of leaks to the effect that Rex was excellent in the room. He still has a good grip on the league. He's forward thinking as to how he would build the staff, even if he said on the radio he had no idea he was going to build the staff recently. I'm sure he will publicly go out and say he kicked ass in the interview. He probably did kick ass in the interview. An interview and being a head coach.
That's what he's good at,
things.
Yeah.
Electric personality, loves the Jets. There's a lot of love in the room for that guy with the people he's talking to, understandably so. I don't doubt that he did well for himself, and as crazy as it sounds, will probably be a top 3 to 5 candidate for this, depending on how things shake out. I do want to be clear because I got a light backlash in the Discord when I was doing my tiering yesterday, and I had him above guys like Arthur Smith and Matt Nagy and Vance Joseph. I do not think the Jets should hire Rex Ryan, right? My point was that if they miss out on their top like 6 or 7 candidates, and you're telling me they're going to hire Arthur Smith or Rex Ryan, like just hire Rex Ryan at that point. I don't need to see Adam Gase again and Arthur Smith. I've seen that before. If you're going to be bad, at least be bad and entertaining. Don't be bad and hire Arthur Smith and go through the process of trying to pitch us that that's going to work, because it's not going to work and it's going to be a disaster. Mm-hmm. With Rex, to be clear, it ended very bad for Rex. It did not work at the end. It did not work for him in Buffalo. He didn't even last a full 2 seasons. He has not coached for a long time for a reason. There's no other teams considering from a head coaching role. I think some of this is his Jets tie. Some of this is a courtesy to get people thinking of him, not as a media personality, but as a coach. And I think that guy wants to coach again. I think he'd be thrilled to be a defensive coordinator somewhere, and maybe getting this interview gets him back in that process. Why I don't think this would work beyond being just out of step with where the league is now, and he was already trending towards being out of the step with where the league was when he left. I just don't know what the staff is going to look like. And if it's going to be Seth Ryan and Anthony Lynn and Dennis Thurman and Mike Pettin, and it's just, that is not a credible way to go compete with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Harbaugh, the other Harbaugh, and everything that is in the AFC right now, Mahomes and Reed. It just feels like you're taking a step backward, trying to capture something that worked a long time ago. And I don't want to spend a lot of time like smearing Rex, because I don't think
that's not the goal. Yeah,
that's not the goal. I don't think he's their number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4 choice. What I'm a little afraid of is that the musical chairs start and the Jets kind of get left out, and it's like Rex, Vance Joseph, or Brian Greasy, and they're like, I'm not rolling out Brian Greasy or Vance Joseph on the cover of my season preview guide with Tyrod Taylor next year. We're bringing Rex back. And even if it's a disaster for 25 games, it's an interesting disaster. What do you think of this whole thing happening? What happened in that interview room today? And what happens next with this candidacy? I cannot believe we're talking about this. And I got the push notification on my phone today, and it was like, I can't believe this is happening.
It is pretty unbelievable that we are opening. I understand it's technically the first official Badlands episode of 2025, but this will be one of the most pivotal shows of the entire year, I mean to say, with Rex Ryan being a legitimate candidate for the New York Jets job. And like you said, there's a delicate line to walk here, because we are Jets fans, and I think it's the pie chart of Jets fans are the 15%, in my opinion, that want Rex back. There's the large majority that look at this and go, the good times were the good times. You just got to let it go, and you got to try something different. And then there's probably the other end, the other small sliver that doesn't want anything to do with Rex, doesn't even really look back that fondly at Rex, because they look at how things ended versus the 2 AFC championship appearances. And I understand that. I think why the majority is the way it is because of how poorly things have been since he left, that the bar has been pretty low. And that's where the conversation becomes the most difficult to me. When I see the Jet fan arguing, and not just Jet fan, like prominent members of the media arguing for Rex as the guy for the job, the conversation or the fallback point is always, well, nobody's since he's been better than everybody since you let him go. That's not the right way to look at this. Why aren't you trying to achieve more? There's not this situation where, Rex won more games throughout his tenure than all the guys combined or whatever since he's been here. The goal is bigger than that. There's not some, hey, the team was competitive. And my biggest problem with the Rex combo is, because I think the people that are looking at this in a short-sighted view and saying bring him back are looking at it as, yes, you'd get the dopamine hit, right? There's no denying that the team would be fired up. And there's a chance next year that the Jets come out of the gate and they're playing hard, they're loud, they're brash. We've seen this before. This is how it all started.
Yep.
Then there's the reality where in this era especially, which is a much different era than 2009 and 2010, the offense isn't good enough to be highly competitive in the AFC. The staff, which I'm going to lean on a little bit further in just a second, like you said, Joe, is kind of maybe a throwback look and not as forward thinking, although we don't know that for sure, but that's an assumption. And I'm going to get into why I think that assumption is fair right now. And that the Jets are in a situation, whether you want to admit it or not, there's going to be a young quarterback brought into this organization within the next 2 to 3 years that needs to be built up and developed, because the Jets still haven't figured that out. They still haven't figured that out. Do you think that Rex Ryan and his staff that we don't know about are the ones that are going to get that right this time? When all the other people that have failed at this, including Rex Ryan and his previous staff, by the way, with multiple young quarterbacks. So I think it's the people that want him back. The bar is so low for them, and they believe that he'll get the team to buy back in, which we all do. We all do. But the sustainability of it, if you're convincing yourself that it's going to be different in terms of sustainability, I don't know what proof you have in the pudding to get there. And then the number one thing I'll say is, because I admittedly have consumed a lot of Rex Ryan content over the last week. To be fair, I wanted to be fair when having this conversation, because this is somebody that's looked at in a very positive light in Jets history, rightly so. He loves the organization. He goes to bat for the organization a lot, and he often calls things out the way he sees them with the organization. I listened to his interview on DiPietro and Rothenberg at the end of this week, which those guys are great, and they asked him really good questions. And honestly, why I came away disappointed with Rex was, and maybe he didn't think it was the format, but nothing changed. It was when somebody's out of the league that long, the number one thing I would ask them in an interview room setting is, and this was the questions that a lot of people had with Mike McCarthy after his tenure in Green Bay. What have you been doing to keep up with the league and improve? Because it's a very hard thing to do when you're out of the league. It's even harder when you're on television. And I say that as somebody that, I understand I'm very different than Rex Ryan, but during the NFL season or football season, I'm on television 6 to 7 days a week. Full transparency, I find it very hard during that time of the year to improve at things that are football related. I still scout, I still watch film, I still try. But the most studying I do of new things I don't understand, analytical concepts, scouting methods, historical things, all that stuff for me is after football season into the summer, because I have time. I'm not doing television 6 to 7 days a week. Rex Ryan's been doing a lot of TV. What has he been doing in coaching circles where he knows time management, challenges, obviously possessions and controlling the game clock, different things that the rules are very different right now, from special teams to defense to offense, what you can get away with, what you can't. So I'm not saying Rex can't coach anymore. I know he can coach defense, all those things. But all I hear when I listen to him is, I'm the guy for the job. How do you get the Garrett Wilson never want to buy back in? 2 seconds, they'll buy back in. What's your staff look like? I don't know, but I'm going to have a great staff. That's not helping me go to bat for this second round. And maybe you just don't want to say those things, but I don't actually think that. I think that's the way it is. It's just Woody Johnson's getting the real me, no phony. Like, Woody likes me. Woody's not the problem. It's the leadership that's the problem. So be careful what you wish for in this scenario. And I'm going to tell you right here, I don't think Rex would be a disaster. I think they'd come out and play hard for him and there'd be energy around the team. In a short bubble, yes. But as a football person, I don't care about short bubbles. I care about the infrastructure and the sustainability and doing things the right way and innovations and the modern game of football. And all the good organizations right now care about those things and prioritize those things. And unfortunately, we have to talk about a legend of this organization in an honest light that represents almost none of those things. And it stinks that we have to have that combo, but it got this far, so the combo has to be had.
Yeah. Where's the Rex? I spent, 2 weeks with Georgia or Alabama this year, learning some new concepts in their system. I spent a week at PFF going over the latest rules and analytical trends. I've been talking a lot to these 3 coaches in the NFL. I sat in with the Chiefs for a week when they were game planning for the playoffs last year. All that
None
stuff.
of that.
That's what you want to hear. And, in his interview, if you were serious about it, it's like, look, I know you think I'm going to hire all my old buddies. I'm not. I actually want to hire this quarterback coach, this receiver coach.
My son works with this guy. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what you would want to hear. But anyway, so beyond Rex, Mike Vrabel, probably not happening, probably going to New England, who did, I'll think of the politest way I could put this, a bit of a show today and checking the boxes they needed to before being able to hire him. It seems like
insane.
It seems like the train is pulling into the station and Vrabel's going to end up there. Now, is there a 2% chance that this version of Kraft could screw it up in some way? Sure. The Raiders' job is open now, too. Ben Johnson's going to interview with the Patriots. I'd be lying to you guys if I said I expect anything except for Mike Vrabel to be the Patriots head coach really soon, maybe before the next time we record. And I'd also be lying if I said it was not a big deal. He actually isn't that good. No, it sucks. It's bad news. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. And this may have always been inevitable to happen anyway. It's hard to say. And you just got to kind of get up off the mat and move past it. Right. Maybe it doesn't, but I think he's going to be the Patriots coach. I'd be really surprised if it didn't happen. You get beyond that, we're talking now about Aaron Glenn, Brian Flores, has sort of the next 2. They seem to be the next 2 most serious candidates, next 2 most popular candidates, I would guess generally, although a lot of people prefer some of the offensive names, which we'll talk about in more detail. Liam Cohen is not on this request to interview list yet. He's in Jacksonville, along with our good friend Robert Saleh. We talk about Glenn, we talk about Flores. Interestingly enough, they just went head-to-head in this Sunday night game. And Glenn, who we talked about a couple weeks ago, taking all this heat for people are down on him because the defense is playing poorly, even though they're playing with all backups, goes out and is absolutely terrific in the biggest game of the year. Now, does that game mean he's going to be a great head coach? Absolutely not. My stance on all coordinators are that it's roulette. Being a coordinator and a head coach is completely different. We have no idea if Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn are going to be a better head coach. It could very well be Johnson. It could very well be Glenn, because it's a whole different job than just calling plays. I think you said this well last time, immediately writing Glenn off and assuming he's Todd Bowles or Robert Saleh is a bit ridiculous. And for Jet fans who are saying we can only hire an offensive mind, you're ignoring your own franchise's history. The Jets hired an offensive mind with Adam Gase. It was a complete disaster. The last 4 times the Jets made the playoffs, guy with a defensive background, Bill Parcells, Herm Edwards, Eric Mangini, Rex Ryan. So it has worked here. And they were over 500 with Todd Bowles. I'm not saying he was a good coach or is even a good coach right now. I'm just saying acting like there's no precedent for this having success is inaccurate. And I look at some of these other names. All right, it's not Vrabel. You don't want Rex. It's not going to be Ben Johnson. It's not going to be Monken. We've told you this 78,000 times. It's not going to be Kingsbury. Unless you're throwing a college Hail Mary to a Sarkisian or a Kirby Smart, which probably isn't going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen. Who are we talking about here? We're talking about Aaron Glenn. We're talking about Brian Flores. We're talking about Joe Brady. Or we're talking about the Arthur Smith, Matt Nagy, Vance Joseph, Ron Rivera, Brian Greasy, Daryl Rizzi. Is there any other names I'm missing? Bucket. So it gets ugly fast once you kind of get past those names. And we've been both pretty bullish on Glenn and Flores for a while. This isn't like us being like, oh no, they're great candidates. Like we're just saying that now. Like, we've been saying we think they could be really good candidates. Talk about where you think. Let's assume it's not Rex. Let's assume it's not Vrabel. Who are your top three at this point and why?
So obviously, you nailed two of them right there. I like Flores a lot, and I think Flores has the head coach experience they look for. I think Flores, honestly, I always say it to people like this. When Flores started with Miami, and I looked around the AFC East, I was like, this guy might be a problem, actually. Like, this is one of those, and I don't get that feeling a lot with coaches in the AFC East where you look around. Like, I still don't feel that way about McDermott in Buffalo. I just think they have, and I think he's fine. He's fine. I don't think he's an amazing coach. I think he's solid. They also have an alien at quarterback that, an MVP caliber quarterback. Obviously didn't feel that way about Mayo this year. Belichick at the end of this tenure, it was looking pretty sad. I really liked McDaniel as an offensive mind, but there was always questions if he was going to be able to grow past being an offensive staff member to a head coach. But there was a time where I looked at Flores and I go, this guy might be a problem because he's really smart defensively. He's a hard ass. I think he knows what he wants on his defense. And I understand a lot of people that push back and talk about the Tua relationship. I think there are two sides to that story, and I understand that maybe, and he'll probably tell you he didn't handle it the best way. I also think he was holding a young player accountable, and it maybe blew up to the point where it got too one-sided. But once again, there's a lot to unpack there. But, and there's things I like about Glenn and Flores trickle effect. But I want to talk about the third candidate that I think is at least interesting for this job, and I think has a better chance than everybody's kind of glossing over him because they tie him to Flores. I think Josh McCown is a real player for this job.
Ooh, McCown Town, baby.
And this is me drawing some conclusions and going off history. When McCown was with the Jets organization, he was loved in the building.
Beloved.
And not the
Absolutely
kind of loved, not just kind of beloved by his teammates, but from ownership down. People felt like he was the kind of presence in an organization that they did not have a lot of over the last couple of years. And that he was perfect for young players. He was great for coaches. He was very easy to talk to from ownership. And just an overall guy that kept the room, almost what we always say about Morgan Moses. But you're an offensive tackle, like that reach only extends so far. When you're a quarterback, it does illuminate throughout the entire organization. And that's how McCown's kind of presence was. So what we know, right? You just do the what we know. What we know is there's a lot of, people at the top of the Jets organization that think highly of him. What we also know with McCown is people around the NFL have thought he's going to be a head coach for a long time. They just didn't know when. There was obviously the whole Texans thing a couple years ago. He kind of caught a stroke of bad luck when he was with that Panthers staff. That was a disaster that I don't think that was really his fault, but everybody had to be let go because the head coaching was such a mess over there. And it's almost like he got driven off he got totally driven off the